Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to the Streets of Rage 3 commentary. And now to pick up where the story would leave off if you were playing on normal mode, which I'd like to remind you, this is, the US version, so basically playing the normal mode means playing the hard mode, because otherwise you're unable to continue on easy mode, which would be the Japanese normal mode, meaning that the Japanese easy mode is easier than easy. And, play through on the English normal mode, and then you basically get, yes, Dr. Zen knew this model was a prototype, rescue the chief of police. And thus you can access stage 6, basically where Mr. X is keeping the police chief, and thus, the Streets of Rage gang pretty much going on a mission to rescue him. By the way, I would also like to point out, remember how I said that, the English version difficulty gates, easy mode by saying, oh, yeah, if I'm to continue, I have to play on hard difficulties in order to get past. Wanna know something? You can complete the entire game normally in the Japanese version on Streets of Rage 3, all on easy mode, which is easier than the one that we got, so... Yeah, I'm just sort of sitting here scratching my head wondering, did Japanese players consider Streets of Rage 2, to be far too difficult for them? Or was it just localization screwing over Streets of Rage 3? Because, I can't imagine that people would have thought that Streets of Rage 2 was too easy. It has difficulty selections for a reason, so really, what the fuck? I'm honestly at a complete loss for words as to why the localization team would do this, if it was even them to begin with. Was it the Japanese team? I don't know why they would sabotage their own products for Western audiences, but not for Japanese versions, unless there's some sort of, I don't know, cross-cultural racism going on, because, Well, the Japanese can be a little bit, I say the Japanese, but I think it's really more of a thing with, older generations, but they tend to be a little bit, filthy Gaijins, what have you. But then again, that might just be a stereotype, and, varies from person to person, as is much of the case in Western culture. Or at least I certainly hope so, otherwise, well, what are we gonna do? Well, I suppose we just sort of smack her around with a pole, and a plank, I suppose. Oh no, Blaze was shot. I can't believe Blaze is fucking dead. Except not, because she can survive getting shot. In any case, though, to kind of talk about the design work of what we're doing around here, yeah, you saw those laser gates bopping all about the place. Well, yeah, pretty much what you need to do is just take out a lot of the generators around here, defeat a lot of the lasers, and, basically just sort of ensure that you get to the police chief on time. You might have been noticing in a few of the stage backdrops that there was, a little bit of a countdown going on with some of those walls. Yeah, Mr. X has basically rigged this thing to, release toxic, noxious gas. So, yeah, basically destroy both generators and make your way to the police chief in time. And, if his health is slowly draining, then, get to him lickety-split, because otherwise, you got one dead police chief, and that's just gonna give you a whole bunch of issues. And you might be thinking that losing the police chief is an instant game over, but, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But yeah, in other words, again, here's the police chief right there. We must save him! But yeah, you basically have to No, you have to defeat each of the enemies on each floor, that way the doors open, and then it's pretty much a game of, pick and choose the right door to get to the generator, destroy all the lasers, and by the time you've pretty much got it, head on back down to the previous floor and, do your best to save the police chief. But yeah, you do have 3 floors to choose from, so one of which was the floor in which you started, so yeah, do be on your guard. You do have plenty of enemies to defeat, so the time is of the essence, more than it would be in any other stage, and again, if I can credit stage 6 or anything, it does pretty well in changing up the dynamics, and it does make this very much a race against time, which does give it its own unique stage gimmicks, which... Again, it's one of the things that I do quite enjoy about Streets of Rage 3. It's not just about getting to the end of the stage, beating people up, and going a wee bit doolally. No, there's actually more stage dynamics going on apart from just basic hazards and, whatever else. See, we actually have a little laser grid there where if you jump up high enough, you're gonna be paying for it. But yeah, there's also the whole penalty mechanic of, losing the police chief and, that indeed affecting the story, because, I'm not gonna give anything, I might give it away, but you're gonna be seeing it in the rest of the part, but, I'll talk about that when we get to it. In the meantime, though, there are still ninjas that we need to take care of, so, yeah, again, if you get into a wrong room like that, you pretty much have a bunch of enemies to defeat, and then are also penalized with having to defeat the same enemies that you've, already encountered out here, so, you know, just wasting more precious time, so you're really gotta make sure that your choices count, because otherwise, well, yeah, the noxious gas starts pouring out. But yeah, door numero 2 is pretty much your choice. But yeah, as the gases are sort of pouring into, you know, the earlier area, yeah, you do actually get a bit of a health meter taking, you know, a bit of a note on what the police chief is doing, you know, how he's surviving. Here's a hint, he's not very good at breathing without oxygen. Well, then again, who is really? Well, somebody without lungs, I suppose. And that's why they must be stopped. But yeah, the point is that, yeah, by the time the gas activates, you have very little time to make it to the police chief, because otherwise, well, he's already been put through the ringer by Mr. X, so, quite naturally, he's going to die. But then again, that is also an intentional part of, you know, what I was doing here, because that gas is also affecting you, so, yeah, whoopsie doodles. But in any case, we gotta go! And I hit the wrong switch. Bonk, bonk, bonk. Yes, please. In slow motion. Because I suppose the Mega Drive can't handle all of that blast processing. Oh, actually, no, I had a faster processor than the NES, so... Really, I don't think this game is that graphically intensive that it should be causing players to, you know, slow down that much whenever the elevator's going up. I don't seem to recall it doing this in the other stage, but... who knows? Oh no, the chief, he is gone. We have to hurry. Run away as we nearly die and we get the floor wrong. I mean, to kind of clear things up here, a bit of this is my own dumbassery and lack of navigational skills as I go through this area, but a bit of it is also because of the fact that I wanted the police chief to die. Delicious. I have no idea what the fuck that is. It looks like an apple pie or some shit. Oh no. Oh no! He is dead! Yes, but he still gets to deliver his message, which is very much what affects the plot going forward. I'm not gonna make it! We can get you to a hospital! But yeah, there is also a little bit more important things going on, because, yeah, you remember how Mr. X had a plan to replace city government officials with, his own robot duplicates? Well, that's basically what's going on here. A robot duplicate of the police chief is pretty much going to do the speech, and, well, he's pretty much going to be saying platitudes about how Mr. X is a pretty great guy. You should vote for him. Elect him into official city office. He's just a swell dude. So basically this pretty much has our Streets of Rage going, trying to get to City Hall before it's too late! And yes, as our boss of the now, which is what you face regardless of whether or not the police chief lives or dies, Jet, and his jetpacking cronies from Streets of Rage 2. Yes, we still have quite a lot of people to defeat in the meantime, so yes indeedy. And with this lengthy boss fight against What's-His-Face, might as well talk a little bit about, hang on a second, just gotta check some audio levels first. And now we're back. Sorry about that, just, you know, distractions, they happen, and also editors fucking you over. It's cool. But in any case, what I wanted to discuss as we defeat Jet over here in this rather lengthy bullshitty boss fight where he just sort of gets and jumps out of your grill. Yeah, the plot differences between the Japanese version and the American version. The American version I've pretty much been talking about all around. It basically being another syndicate take over the world plot with robot duplicates and setting off bombs around the city. But yeah, I bet you're wondering what the Japanese version of the plot is. Well, in that version, it's pretty much a case where the Syndicate and Mr. X plan to sell nuclear arms towards the Lehman nations with Rakushin, a newly discovered unstable radioactive element that, if detonated, would result in a huge death toll, and anybody who knows anything about nuclear bombs and explosions basically meaning that it covers the area in a nice healthy dose of radiation and leaves the entire place uninhabitable. And now you're starting to see why it's a little bit more important that Blaze, Dr. Zan, and everybody else put a stop to Mr. X before he basically turns Wood City into, well, another Hiroshima. Now, there is actually a little bit more going on. Again, the whole deal with the police chief and everything else, that wasn't really much of a part of the plot, because the police chief, who was initially meant to be was actually General Ivan Petronov, somebody who was part of the Lima Nations, trying to negotiate peace talks between different countries. And ostensibly, you know, the American version replaced him with a police chief, and the whole idea of nuclear war was downplayed, which I do kind of have to wonder why that is specifically, because, I mean, I don't think the Cold War was really much of a thing anymore, and, well, I mean, let me put it this way. I think we're a little bit more in danger of a nuclear holocaust now in 2025 than we ever were back around, like, 1994, so really, why they sort of tried to downplay the danger of the situation, I don't really understand. And I mean, even in that case, I mean, if it was because of bombings and everything, I mean, bombs are still being detonated and exploded anyways, so half-hearted censorship? Or more half-assed censorship, really, because they didn't bother to censor much of all? Well, on the positive point, Adam is back. Oh, happy, happy, joy, joy. But yes, indeedy, he's here to help us out by basically being the helicopter pilot. And in any case, he's pretty much here to get us to City Hall and make sure that we stop them before time runs out. But yeah, Adam is pretty much our wheel man, and as for why he's not in the game, well, I mean, he's busy. Evidently being a father, I suppose. But yeah, these cutscenes do actually change depending on whether or not you actually save the police chief, because this brings us to one of the next elements of Streets of Rage 3, diverging story pathways. And that's also part of the reason why you can't access Stage 7, if you happen to if you happen to use the level select code. Because this level 7 is also very different from the level 7 you get if you do save the police chief / General Ivan Petrovich, whatever. So yeah, in this case, you're pretty much trying to stop the robot duplicate of the police chief from, you know, spilling the beans at City Hall, or otherwise you're, you know, pretty much taking the fight to Mr. X good and proper, which you'll be seeing in the next part. And yeah, that's all to do with the fact that Streets of Rage 3 does actually have multiple endings, and not just the one I'm going to be showing you here, there is actually another ending, even if you get to the very end on the so-called good pathway. Again, if you happen to fuck up at the last hurdle, well, you're pretty much in for a lot of pain. Like Blaze, as she unleashes the no butter. Oh, by the way, you might have noticed that the star's gone now, but you might have noticed the stars that appear under Blaze. Yeah, again, I think it's if you happen to complete a level and, you know, maintain your current life, that, yeah, if you get some of those stars under your belt, your attacks actually become a little bit more powerful and fast, so, yeah, it does actually pay dividends to play skillfully in this game and ensure that you hold onto your lives for as long as you can, because, you know, you can gradually build up your rank, have more powerful attacks, and, you know, overall it's pretty good. Especially as Blaze tries to use her super washa slushy slash attack with the weapons. An ability that I believe is only shared by her and nobody else, so, yeah. Uniqueness as to playing with Blaze, really. Yeah, but in terms of anything else, in terms of the stage aesthetics right here, I don't know, I happen to quite like seeing, you know, Wood Oak City during the day, and in turn, I don't know, some pretty great music all around, and, I don't know, it really does sort of help the race against time tension that, this level provides, really. You know, we gotta stop the police chief, and, like, I don't know, like, I mean, it's as I've said before, like, I mean, Streets of Rage 3, as I mentioned all throughout, does have a lot of issues, a lot of which was imposed by the fucking localization team for some bizarre reason, but, again, despite its best efforts, I'm still able to really enjoy what this game does, and, I don't know, I feel like if this game wasn't as fucked with, it probably would be remembered as fondly as Streets of Rage 2, and, even if not, like, I mean, I feel like the series still probably would have been going strong long enough for us to get, like, a Streets of Rage 4 either for the Saturn or, you know, Dreamcast at the very least, but again, that's, stuff we'll probably talk about in the last part. But in the meantime, though, we have a bunch of streetwalkers and agents going, Mr. Anderson, I've been looking for you. But, well, as soon as we defeat all these people, we can continue discussing, well, I guess, maybe... Yeah, I've kind of already talked about that. I was, initially gonna be, again, I already did pretty much bring up the fact that, you know, for some bizarre reason that you can't complete this game on the easy mode, yet Japanese audiences can. I don't really know who's responsible for this or why. I mean, it's not even really a censorship thing, like, you know, covering up, like, a lot of the women, like Electra or whatever, or changing the characters' outfit colors for some reason. It really just sort of strikes me as just fucking... It just strikes me as fucking bizarre, really, and that's, quite disappointing. But then again, it was for a lot of these changes that pretty much allowed Sega to, you know, end up dropping Streets of Rage as one of its, you know, top brands on the Mega Drive, and there was actually a few attempts to sort of get the series revived on a, you know, Dreamcast and Saturn hardware. There was actually, while Sega wasn't really interested about developing it in-house, there was actually a game developed by Core Design, you know, creators of Tomb Raider, that did actually pitch to Sega an idea for, you know, a fighting game on the Sega Saturn as a 3D beat-em-up, which was going to be Streets of Rage 4, but again, when Sega said no dice, that eventually became Fighting Force. Yeah, pretty much the only other decently known game that Core Design ever developed, but even Fighting Force ended up falling by the wayside as it tried to rip off Metal Gear Solid with some, like, fucking bizarro time travel bullshit in Fighting Force 2, and, you know, even they tried to get a Fighting Force 3 made during the PS2 generation, but even that fell by the wayside when, you know, Core Design, well, fucked things up with a little game known as Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness. Although even in that case, I did hear that Tomb Raider's 4 through Angel of Darkness is actually being developed as like another similar collection to what you also already had with Tomb Raider, so yeah, it does make me wonder whether or not it's going to be a faithful, glitchy representation of what that game was like, or if it's, you know, if they're going to make any sort of improvements to it. But I mean, then again, and again, I can't remember if I'm misremembering this, or maybe I heard this somewhere else, but I did hear that apparently, in similar vein to the Tomb Raider collections, they actually plan on releasing like a Fighting Force duology. So I don't know whether it's going to be like fully remaking or regraphicing the game. Graphicking? That's not a fucking word. Retexturing the games with a bit of a remaster for Fighting Force 1 and 2, or if it's just going to be a straight up port, but yeah. Potentially you could see the Streets of Rage that could have been. But yeah, as for the Dreamcast project, yeah, apparently there was a Streets of Rage 4 in the works as something that was going to be similarly a 3D beat-em-up, but yeah, that never ended up getting far and was sadly lost to time. Although I do imagine that, I guess maybe that game eventually became a spike out for the original Xbox, because as was a lot of Sega's projects before the Semi-buyout, they tended to go into, you know, Xbox hardware, unless of course it was Sonic, in which case they pretty much ended up picking GameCube, so yeah, Sega's post-Dreamcast lineup was quite weird. I mean, you had some games that had exclusivity on GameCube, others on Xbox, and even one on the PlayStation with the Shinobi reboot, with Shinobi and Nightshade, so yeah, Sega being without a home kind of left them, you know, up ship creek, and pretty much had to use their tongue as a paddle to sort of find their footing again. Oh dear, we have the two twins, Spin Dash Charlie and Big Bob. Recolored, one with purple pants and the other with red. Blurg. And if it sounds like I'm trying to pace out for commentary as we beat up Big Bob, you're right. But to be completely honest though, we've only got 2 parts left, but even in that case, I still kind of want to pace myself because we do have an entire other level that we haven't seen yet, so, you know, I want to save my thoughts on the stage dynamics and everything else for then, but, again, if there is anything I can say about the City Hall level, it does have its own unique little appeal compared to, you know, what we've seen throughout the rest of the Streets of Rage series, so yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with this level. I mean, it does technically lead to the bad ending, but the music's pretty good, stage dynamics are quite interesting as a race against time kind of thing, and, I don't know, aesthetically, the level looks pretty nice. Also, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be allowed to walk into a press conference like that, so, cool. So, well, then again, we did just beat up all the guards, so maybe that does make a little bit of sense. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to lay out my plans. I am the best. All the criminals of the city are not the best. Thus concludes my speech. Kill them all. But yes, in this case, it's also here where we see the return of a fellow friend that we once saw earlier on in the game, but now returning again. Oh my god, it was Shiva! We've exposed him! Oh, the horror! So yeah, now we pretty much have a battle against Shiva again. And in much more powerful straits than he was before. But yeah, in this case though, you know, Blaze is feeling pretty tight. I mean, she's pretty much been doing this whole adventure solo, so, or not, actually. I pretty much found the strategy, which I probably should have, kept on abusing. But, alas, we need to use a continue, so, yeah, it's time to utilize the one Streets of Rage character that I've pretty much been missing out on throughout all the 3 games. I mean, I played as Blaze all throughout 1 and 2, I played as Adam, and, yeah, I think it's about time that we got, Axel some love. Although it's quite clear that I'm not very adept at using him. Again, as I said beforehand, Blaze is pretty much my go-to pick when it comes to Streets of Rage, and I'm more used to Adam with his live abilities in Streets of Rage 1 as well, so, yeah, Axel is a little bit too sluggish for my liking. I mean, again, he does have a lot of rapid multiple hits, but, not that it really helps against Shiva, though, because he's a lot more, you know, acrobatic and, on his feet, really. So, Axel is, kind of the wrong character to use in this situation. Now, then again, maybe he deserves to get beaten up with his yellow shirt, and, I lose a fuckload of lives, and this boss fight takes, well, a lot longer to really sort of, handle than what I would have liked. Although, if I can talk about, you know, aesthetic things right there, namely the whole bunch of reporters, are they cheering him on, or are they just sort of filming everything going, "Oh, boy, this is gonna make a hell of a scoop"? And also, while the TV cameraman is still also there, is he hoping to make this like a show reel for his America's Funniest Home Video punch-ups at City Hall? Well, I mean, I am also aware that, like, you know, for the sake of recording things, they do actually have, like, a few recording devices in, like, a lot of city councils and all that kind of stuff, you know, just to keep official records of, you know, what plans are for, you know, towns or cities or whatever, but even still, who exactly are they recording this for? I don't know, maybe for the evening news. Our top story at 11, a guy in a tacky yellow shirt and fucking Kung Fu Man are fighting in City Hall, and the police chief is dead. Back to you, Larry. Let's see, do I have anything else? No, I pretty much have one last piece of trivia that I gotta save. And a lengthy boss fight where I die a lot. This will be a long half hour. Door to teacher door. But yeah, I mean, to kind of talk about Axel's, you know, fighting abilities, again, like, again, he's... It's weird, I mean, like, he moves rather slowly, but he does pack in a lot of hits, you know, quick hits. This is, thing, and he does also have the bare knuckle attack, where he pretty much swings around his fist and, you know, gives him one solid whack, but... Yeah, no, not quite as, all-rounder as I would have liked, so, yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be picking a character in Streets of Rage 3, it's typically gonna be either, you know, it's either gonna be Blaze or Dr. Zan, really, who I don't think I actually technically show off, which is kind of a shame, so, whoop-de-doodle, and it probably would have made sense to use them. Because Dr. Zan also has a rather big role in the cutscene that pretty much concludes this little storyline, so... Oh dear. But in any case, though, I mean, I will say that this probably is one of the more unique boss arenas I've ever seen. I mean, how many fighting games can say that they have a fight taking on in City Hall while they're being recorded by, you know, journalists and TV cameramen? I mean, wouldn't this just make politics a lot more exciting if you had, like, your MPs and, you know, your representatives of the state pretty much just, you know, jumping up and, you know, doing fisticuffs? I don't know, I think it'd be fun. What better way to solve political issues than beating the shit out of people? Yeah, and also, Axel's jump attack is also a little bit too, lacking in range, and it's also, not quite powerful enough for my taste, so, not really too much to say at all. Unless, of course, you have your bare knuckle attack, which is also the name of the series in Japan. Although, if I can say anything about what I actually did with the intro back in part 1, yeah, that whole thing with the explosion graphics of the Rikution bombs being exploded with, you know, as the intro to Streets of Rage 3, yeah, that's part of the Japanese version, which I decided to just sort of include for a bit of flavor, but, yeah, I mean, if you thought the Streets of Rage 3 intro logo for, you know, what you have in the PAL/American release was boring, yeah, you should check out the Japanese version, which pretty much has Axel getting ready for battle, and then also breaking the screen, getting Bare Knuckle 3, with a sick-as-hell title sequence that we were sadly screwed on. Quish, but in any case, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on the Streets of Rage 3 commentary, well, we get to see the good ending, so catch you next time.